Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to do something a little bit different. I think I say that every single time, but you might remember this piece that I made several months ago. I kind of hate it, so we're going to try to fix it today. And my plan is to go over a lot of it with some titanium white, but I'm still going to let some of the underneath patterns and colors come through. And then I'm going to use some collage papers. I'm going with some stuff that I already have. I've got stacks and stacks of gel prints and different things that I've got just laying around in my studio. And I'm going to use some paints along with some of the collage papers, and I'm probably going to put a bird on this. I did another couple of videos on mixed media collage birds, probably back in November, December. And this is going to be similar, but not exactly the same as those. They were more whimsical looking, and this will be too, but kind of in a different way. I don't know exactly how to explain it. I have an idea in my head, which is typically not how I work, but I do have an idea kind of for this one. So stick around and hopefully you will see what I'm talking about. So the first thing I'm going to do here is cover the entire canvas with titanium white with this large 2-inch flat brush that I just got. I'm basically covering the entire canvas here, but I'm letting some parts still show through, and I'm actually going to go in and wipe some of it away. I sprayed a little bit of water down, and I'm just doing this to reveal a little bit of the original painting underneath. Most of this is largely going to be covered because after I get this white down, I'm planning on going in with some collage papers and some paint just to create more layers, which is going to be much more interesting in the finished product. My end goal here is to use some negative painting, which is not a new technique at all. This is something I've used many times before and I've seen used many times before. And it basically is just drawing a shape on the surface and painting the background to reveal the shape or actually not hide the shape under the paint. So you'll see what I mean here at the end when I go ahead and add the bird to the canvas. But right now I'm just getting some bright colors down because much in the tune to those other paintings that I showed you of the birds that I had done before, I want this to be kind of bright and really saturated colors and upbeat and happy. Not a dark feel like I do in a lot of my work. This is going to be a lot more upbeat. So I'm using some of my favorite brighter colors here. And just going in and adding them down and covering some of them back up with the white. It's a process, and this is definitely one of those pieces where you have to trust the process because it is going to go through 10 shades of terrible before we get to the final product, which I'm actually really happy with. So now I'm just going in with some of these collage papers. I just grabbed all of the brightly colored ones that I could find in my stack and just kind of going through and picking. There was no real plan to this part. Again, I'm just getting some bright things down on the canvas. That's a piece of sheet music that I actually was using as a roll-off sheet for gel prints, but I kept it because it has those nice bright colors on it, and I'm glad I did because it's working really well there. Plus, it adds the little bit extra of the music notes on there, which I really like. That there, which you can't tell because it's a little too far away, but it's a sheet of text that I gel printed from a magazine, and I did the printing in fluorescent pink and picked it up with Naples yellow, and I thought that turned out really pretty. So, of course, we couldn't get through a piece without using one of my flowers. I love these flowers, and I'm putting them in just about everything, which is totally okay because that's kind of how you make a style. And I love what it adds. I love that it adds the darkness with the black on there, and I love the floral theme as well, which I'm going to carry through to the front of the piece, which you'll see here coming up. This is a sheet that I did in one of my short videos of rainbow flowers, and I thought I'd add in one of those too just for something different. I'm trying to get as many colors and textures as I can on this layer because when I cover up the majority of the background, this is what's going to be exposed underneath, which is going to make up the design of the bird. I really like this one here. This is just some magenta, and I think it was a teal blue. I bought some of the liquid fluid acrylics this weekend, and those were the two colors that I got. And they made that really pretty purpley color there, which I liked. So there's no rhyme or reason. I'm not using regular sizes or shapes or anything. I'm kind of just tearing as I go, and if something seems like it would work in a place, that's where I'm putting it. And once I get all of the collage down and I'm happy with that, I'm coming in with a little bit of paint. I'm sticking with a lot of the same colors that are in these collage papers for two reasons. One, it adds it's a unifying element because we've got those colors in the background and I'm pulling them also to the front. And also they're the nice bright colors that I'm looking for in this piece. Excuse me. So once I let that dry, which probably took about, I think, 3 hours that day because it was a little humid and there were a lot of layers on there. I picked an orientation, which ended up actually just being the one that I was working in before. And I'm drawing just a sketch, a basic bird shape. This isn't necessarily any particular type of bird. I'm just looking for the idea of bird here. And he's sitting on a branch because he needed something to be anchoring him in to make it make sense of some sort. I mean, he could have just been floating in the background, but I thought this was going to work out a little bit better. So I'm just going in and laying that down, and I'm using a piece of vine charcoal, which is an extremely soft charcoal. I'm going to go back in later and define it with a very dark black charcoal that I have, but for now this gives me the outline. I use that charcoal also because it's really easy to wipe that off if you're not happy with it. Okay, so I'm now making my background color. I used a little bit of titanium white with some of the nickel azo gold, and I did a really rough mix. As you can see there, it's not totally mixed in, and I wanted that because I wanted to get some of the different tones and values that it was going to just naturally create. And I'm going in and just painting around the shape of the bird there. Now you'll notice I'm not taking this all the way to the edge of the canvas, which I can see is kind of off the top of the screen there, but you'll see that in a minute. I'm letting some of the underneath colors and shapes still be partially visible. And that's by design. I don't want the whole thing covered up. I want to be able to get those good textures and colors coming through. And they're muted with that white, but they still make sense with the colors in the bird because they're the same colors, right? So it does make a lot of sense that you would be able to see those, and it makes the canvas feel a little more unified. I did go in with a little bit of Payne's Gray and mixed it in with that titanium white and azo gold mixture just to get some darker values in there too. I'm not really necessarily putting in traditional shadows. I just want the tones to be varied in that background there because it makes it look a little more interesting. And I'm not worrying about full coverage. There's a lot of actual texture underneath there because I have the collage papers down, and some of that I'm just skimming over with the brush, so it's not going into all of the little nooks and crannies, which I love because, again, texture, it's all about texture for me. So once I get this down, I'm not going to let this paint dry. In fact, I'm intentionally going to keep it damp with a little bit of water that I'll be adding on here and there. What I'm going to do is, as you can see that flower at the top right there, I'm going in and I'm going to push that idea a little bit more. That is a wooden bamboo skewer that I'm using, and I'm going in and tracing some of the petals of that flower that got covered up so that you can see them. It's like finishing the drawing but with the skewer. And I'm also going, excuse me, back in with that skewer and carving into that damp paint and adding more flowers around it. So what this is doing is not only does it look cool, which I think it does, but it's unifying it further because you've got the flowers in the collage papers behind the paint. We're pulling them to the front, and it's also revealing even more of those colors and textures underneath, which you'll be able to see here since I zoomed in a little bit. And this is all just very sketchy. I'm not doing anything to look super realistic, of course, but it's allowing those colors to come through. And I do want to say when I'm doing this, because the paint is damp and there is paper underneath it and that skewer is pointy, it is pulling up a little bit of the paper, but I'm not concerned about that. What I did do to mitigate that in the end though is I took a coat of the matte gel medium and applied it over top of any of those areas where there might be little loose pieces of paper or paint coming off, because you don't want that flaking off. I mean, that could be definitely a weak point in the piece that could damage it further in the future. So I just kind of went along with my skewer there, dampening where I needed to, and I pulled a little bit of the paint off with that paper towel, and I'm just going in and adding these flowers all over the surface there. I really like the way this turned out, and this is definitely a technique I'm going to be using in the future. Again, I did use it in another one of my paintings, which is, where the idea came from. There's nothing better than pulling from your own bag of tricks as an artist, and that's another style building tool as well. I already have an idea for a larger piece that I'm going to do this with, and I can't wait to do that with you guys here sometime in the future. But once I've got all of these flowers on there, I'm going to go ahead in with that darker piece of charcoal that I was talking about and really get everything outlined in a dark way. I can't remember what the name of this charcoal is. I bought it probably a good 25 years ago when I was in art school. I believe they still sell it though, down the aisle where the pastels are. It's just a very, very dark black, which I love. And it's going to really give a good outline to everything and make it stand out against that whiter background. And what I'm going to do once I get everything outlined the way I want it, I'm just going to use my finger and kind of blend it outward to create a soft, I guess shadow is a good enough word to use, even though it's not technically a shadow. But I'm just going to be blending it outward to soften that edge so it doesn't look like rough charcoal, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not exactly what I was going for there. But before I do that, I'm going in with just a little bit more collage paper and I'm adding it to the bird just in a few places. I'm not going to collage the entire thing because that would have made the point of leaving all of those pretty colors exposed kind of moot. But I'm just adding a few little pieces here and there where I think it will add something and add just a little pop of color, a little pop of texture, and just really help that stand out against that background. Now, I could have made the decision to go in and collage the whole bird. I could have made the decision to do a realistic bird and collage it in this way, which I will probably do at some point in a video, either using a bird or a flower or some kind of familiar object, and do a more realistic version of this type of collage because I think those can be really beautiful when they're done well. I've never actually tried one, so my first attempt will be on camera with you all and we can see how it goes. But for now, I'm just adding a couple of pieces to this little guy here just to brighten up some spots. I found that really pretty bright red piece of paper that I had, and I like the way that it looks next to that kind of bluish purple gel print that I have there. And I mean, you can go as crazy with this as you want to go. You can cover any little bit of the bird. You could do an entire thing with the branch. You can even go in and put some of this on the background if you wanted to. I'm really happy with the background, the way that it turned out, so I'm not going to mess with any of that. I kind of just want to leave the integrity of those flowers with the colors coming through the way that it is on there because I'm really liking the way that it's coming together for me. So I thought I'd go in and put just the idea of an eye on there, which I kind of penciled in when I was doing the original sketch, but it got covered up because I collaged over that piece. And now I'm going in and re-outlining that bird with my dark charcoal. This is a very, very messy charcoal. I mean, most charcoal is, but this specifically, since it's so dark. So I keep wiping my hand off on a paper towel. Very, very easy to get smudges where you don't want them when you're using this, so just kind of be mindful of that and maybe have a damp cloth or something to the side where you can keep cleaning your fingers off. But I'm blending in those hard edges a little bit just to soften it into that white background and really make it stand out. There is no doubt that this is the focal point of the piece, and I just love the way that looks. So I'm taking that same charcoal there and outlining the edge and running my finger over it to soften it. It's creating a nice frame for the piece, which I love. I've been doing that in several of my pieces too, if you've watched any of my last few videos. And I just think it's such a nice quality to add to the piece. I'm happy with it at this point, so I'm signing my name, and here is the finished product. This is such a fun process and such a great way to save a piece that you might not necessarily love, like with the piece that I started with. And I have another piece that is much larger. I can't remember the dimensions. It has a bird on it already, and I absolutely hate it. We're going to try to fix that at some point too, possibly even next week. I'm going to see what I can do with it. But this little guy is called Singing in My Sleep. He is available for purchase on my Etsy shop if anyone is interested in checking that out. There is a link in the description. And I thank you all so much for being with me today, and thank you to all of my subscribers this week. You guys are awesome. If you haven't had a chance yet, go ahead and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of my new content, and give me a thumbs up if you like what you see, and I will talk to you all next week. Have a great one.